because of the rupee depreciation, the investment to India has become more attractive and a lot of companies are investing in India. I'm pretty sure those who are going as a startup into the US, they have the niche product and services to offer. There may be further depreciation of the currency in next 1 month or so. So Indian manufacturer has to live with this kind of uncertainty. Please bear in mind that we are now developing an ecosystem for the startups. We are the third largest startup in the world.
As Trump takes oath as the 47th US president, the global market landscape is full of anticipation. And for India, the startup industry and overall business industry is expecting a lot from US and Trump. But what is going to be there for startups, business, finance, and for the entire industry? To understand this, we have with us Mr. Ajay Sahai, CEO and DG of FIEO. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
To begin with our conversation, I first want to understand from you what is going to be the impact of Trump's return to power for the Indian exporters.
In fact, it is going to be extremely positive. We are the largest democracy with commonality of interest. We have the same vision for the world. We have our strategic relationship intertwined also. We are working with the US in critical areas such as defense, aerospace, maritime security. We are having common affiliation with the US in the Indo-Pacific also. We have with the US Quad on the east as well as on the west. When it comes to the trade, our bilateral trade is increasing. In calendar year 2023. Our bilateral trade was close to $190 billion with export of $120 billion, import of $70 billion. We are looking into to take it to $500 billion during the regime of Mr. Trump. It is something which is within the realm of the reach. And from the exporter point of view, since most of the Indian exports are not competing directly with the manufacturing in the US, we are not seeing much threat. Probably in some of the sectors like pharmaceuticals, IT and IT-enabled services, food and agriculture product, apparel sectors, footwear sector, we are likely to gain market in the US. If high tariffs are imposed on some of the competing country, we'll see business moving from US, from those countries to India. So it's an opportunity for India, though of course we have to be ready with some kind of negotiation. He has already shown his concern for high tariff in India and also on the market access. I'm pretty sure the government is ready with its own low-hanging fruits where some kind of negotiation take place. I personally feel that he is basically a businessman. For him, the US interest is paramount, but we will be able to negotiate with him, which will be a win-win situation for both the sides.
So you rightly mentioned in your answer that he is going to be very aggressive about the concept of America first, and he mentioned about this in his recent speech as well. So do you think that this policy will make Indian exporters rethink their strategies to work with US?
I think in most of the sectors, since we are not competing with the US manufacturing, there is not much challenge. One of the sectors where we have to be a little careful is, of course, the automobile sector, because he has shown his interest to revive automobile manufacturing into the US. If for propelling the manufacturing, he will increase the tariff war for that will be a problem. But I think by and large, I feel that there will be much more market available to India, even in the automobile sector. If very high tariff is imposed on other competing countries, probably will get the market. So at this point of time, we have to wait and see what kind of tariffs are imposed, on which countries these tariffs are imposed, whether India has a competing position in those tariff line, and that is there will be an assessment of the situation, and accordingly strategy needs to be devised by the Indian exporters.
Sir, you talked about automobile sector, how Trump is very clear to revive automobile manufacturing. But at the same time, one thing which is missing from his addresses and from his policies is EV. And on the other hand, India is very aggressive on EV manufacturing. So do you think that this will create a conflict or this will impact, EV exporters in any way?
No, I don't think. I think both the countries have different commitment against the carbon emission. We have committed to the Paris Convention. We have said by 2030 we'll be reducing it by 50%. By 2070 we will be a zero net emitter. But US has not undertaken any such burden on the US, and the country's priorities will be different. For our own interest, we will be promoting EV because the pollution level already has gone up substantially in India. We have to look into addressing it, whether it's because of the international commitment or otherwise also. Mr. Trump has a different position on that. Probably he will be more interested to continue with the conventional automobile. It may be an opportunity for Indian automobile sectors also, because right now many of the companies are looking into moving into their export to African market. If US also continues with that, a market opportunity will lie in the US as well.
So, with the help of platforms like Y Combinator, a lot of Indian startups prefer to, go to Silicon Valley and go to California to run their business, especially in the early stage. So, how do you see that, Trump's return will impact Indian startups who aspire to establish their business in US and maybe in future they want to flip back to India? So, how will it impact the entire process?
And Mr. Trump is, I think he is recognizing Indian talent very well. When he is talking about the immigration, his idea is to probably restrict the low value skill worker, not the top talent. I'm pretty sure those who are going as a startup into the US, they have the niche product and services to offer. We have a lot of venture capital fund in the US. They are also bullish on that. So probably investment should not be much of a problem, not for those companies who are in the US, but a lot of investment will flow to India also. Please bear in mind that we are now developing an ecosystem for the startups. We are the third largest startup in the world. We have many unicorns. And if Indian industry continues in the field of technology and knowledge-based sectors, probably these areas, they will flourish very well, even in the US market, as the industry are quite positive about the development in the US now.
So, with this, what will be the challenges? Like we have talked about the, hopeful side of it, but what will be the potential challenges going forward for startups and for the manufacturer who are exporting their goods?
I think the biggest challenge which every sector will have to face is the uncertainty. We are not sure what kind of policy will come. Different kind of announcements are made by the US president in his election rally. We also know that this is his second tenure and probably he may be different than the first tenure. There will be additional pressure on the currency. We have seen that rupee has depreciated significantly, not because of the factor which are related to Indian economy. There are a lot of global factor. The US factor has already played its role. There may be further depreciation of the currency in next 1 month or so, but we are of the view that probably by the month of April it will settle down. So Indian manufacturer has to live with this kind of uncertainty, not only on the product but also on the currency. But when I'm looking into medium to long-term roadmap, I'm pretty sure that all these sectors are likely to gain. There will be a lot of business which will flow from the other countries to India. This has happened in the past. People can point out that in the last tariff war, India did not get the required advantage. It has flown to the Vietnam, but situation right now is little different. The unemployment rate in Vietnam has come down to 2%. They hardly have much scope to attract manufacturing, and therefore India is in a unique position where a lot of business can flow to India. So the long-term prospect of Indian manufacturing as well as for the startup is extremely positive.
So Trump has been quite vocal about his policies and his view towards China. So he has always been, has imposed high tariffs on Chinese goods. So how do you think that this will help India to, export its good in comparison to China? And what will be maybe top 2 or 3 sectors that you see will, gain momentum from this?
In fact, if you look into the US market, in number of products, India is competing with China, more so in the employment intensive sectors of exports. And probably if higher tariff is imposed on China, we tend to gain business from China. This is much more, I think, will be visible in sectors such as apparel and textile and footwear. And in these segments, the business will flow from China to India to the advantage of India. But there will be other sectors also. For example, if you are talking about toys, if you are talking about furniture, in these segments also, Indian exporters tend to gain. Fortunately, we are not competing much with China in technology and knowledge-driven sector of exports. But in all the traditional sectors of export, we expect these sectors to do very well if our tariff comes on China.
Sir, in our previous questions, we also spoke about investments for startups. So, how do you think that in Trump's second term, are we really expecting any improvement in terms of foreign investment in India?
In fact, because of the rupee depreciation, the investment to India has become more attractive and a lot of companies are investing in India. The long-term growth story of India is intact. We are seeing FDI flowing into not only the services sector, but also in the manufacturing sector. PLI has attracted a lot of FDI into India, and this kind of trend is likely to continue. Since India not only have its own demand, there are a lot of companies who are looking to India to make as a base for their future exports also, and that probably will continue. We are now seeing government to provide an enabling and supportive ecosystem for FDI to be attracted into the country, and we hope that a lot of investment from US to India will also flow, though of course US priority will be to retain manufacturing, but looking into the labor arbitrage in some sector of manufacturing, investment will flow to India.
With a lot of new policy shifts coming in, what will be your tips or advice to the businesses in India to safeguard their interest while dealing on global platforms?
In fact, we have to be a little conscious of the fact that if high tariff works on China, there will be a tendency for China to dump the product in other market, and therefore we have to keep our antenna open. In number of sectors, if higher tariff is imposed on China, which has created huge capacity, may look into providing or dumping those products into, and that is something where Indian businesses have to be very careful. Government is definitely looking into the analysis of import, but probably businessmen can provide the information much quickly, which will help to their advantage as well.
So coming to my last question, what is FIO's expectations from the upcoming union budget?
In fact, on the upcoming Indian budget, we are looking into promoting the marketing, more so marketing to the US, because in our own study, we feel that we can get an additional export of around $25 billion in US alone. We are also putting focus that India should develop a shipping line of global repute, and for that, if tax concession or infrastructure status is required, that needs to be given. Thirdly, we are also looking into incentivizing R&D through tax deduction. We are looking into 200 to 300% tax deduction for R&D. That is the top priority for the Federation for its export sector.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for connecting with us.
Thank you.